He has an Opus card and a microphone. You're in transit with Elias Mackos, CJAD 800.
All right, welcome back to the Elias Mackos Show and In Transit for this Tuesday. Now, after weeks of reduced service and interruptions, the REM, the light rail train, has resumed nearly normal operations. Let's talk about the work that went on to get back to those nearly normal operations. Joined by Francis Labbé. He's from CDPQ Infra. Of course, that's the infrastructure arm of Quebec's pension fund that's in charge of the REM. Francis, welcome back to the program. Thanks for coming on again.
Well, good morning.
All right, so let's talk about the work here. I hear about 30 switches that were repaired. So tell our listeners here about these magical switches that are so important and the work that went on to get this REM back and running.
Well, let's start by explaining again how it works and what it does. A switch allows, for example, a train that is going southbound towards Brossard to go a bit further than the station and then switch on the other set of tracks to go up north. And that allows the fluent service as we normally know for the REM. We had issues this winter and the snow compacting in our switches, affecting the functioning of these equipments that are crucial for the service of the REM. But we are working on these switches. You were talking about 30. That's the good amount of switches we are working on. We've been adding some heating equipment, so if another snowstorm ever occurs like the ones we knew earlier in February, well, the snow and ice won't accumulate and it won't affect the way the switch are functioning as it did a few weeks ago.
Is that a hope or a guarantee? Now, it's, maybe it's warming up a little bit, but let's say next week we have a cold snap, it goes to -10, and we get 25 centimeters of snow. It could happen. That's March in Montreal. It happens. If that were to happen, are you telling me guaranteed not going to shut down, or it's a hope that it's not going to shut down?
What I can tell you is that the switches are more equipped as we speak as compared to what was in place a few weeks ago. So if another snowstorm comes like the ones we knew earlier in February, the impact on the passengers will not be the same. The switches are more equipped now to face such a climate.
Okay, so tell us about the current level of service now that you're back to nearly normal. What does that mean? How often are the trains running here?
So right now the service is offered between 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., more or less. And the main difference as compared to last week is that we are offering now the service in a continuous way between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. And that is with a higher frequency as well. Normally, the service of the REM is about the distance or the time between each passage of the REM is about 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Now we are at a frequency of 4 minutes between the passage of each train. That's in peak period. Outside peak periods, we are more at 8 minutes as compared to 7 or 7:30 minutes prior.
Let me ask you, because there have been calls from mayors on the South Shore, for instance, saying, you know what, bring back the buses, and not to replace the REM, of course, but let's go back to where you could have two options here. So the REM is running, but a couple of those buses that used to go from the South Shore and allowed to go on the bridge and come into downtown Montreal, we should bring back some of those routes just so that we have a backup plan and to improve the overall service. What do you say to those calls? And is the REM open to the idea that maybe at least a couple of those buses can return to go operating from South Shore to downtown?
Well, that situation, as we know it right now, regarding the other lines that were available at the time, we have a situation now that has been that is the result of a deal between the government of Quebec and CDPQ Infra. So I cannot answer myself for both parties involved, unfortunately. But what I can tell you is that if there is a need for a bus shuttle, it is already included in deals that we have with our partners to make sure that people will have access to buses if needed.
And I get that, but as you know, like when the service shuts down, it always takes some time before the shuttle buses are up and running, right? Unless you're going to run it in parallel, and you can't do that long term because financially that would make no sense. Okay, let me ask you about this because, right, REM expansion, it's on the agenda. Maybe it's actually an exciting time at the REM as you look forward through the end of the year. We've got 5 stations now. By the end of the year, we're hoping to have a lot more, right? All the way to De Montagne and Anse-Salom and all that, right? Let me ask you, the problem with this switch is, right, on the stations you're running now, the lines, the section of rail you're running right now, are you working on the switches right now in the rest of the network that's not being operated on? Do you have to go back and fix some of the work that's already been done on those the expansion part of the rail to make sure that when you do launch in full, that we won't see those problems on those sections of the line?
The improvements that will be put in place on the South Shore branch will be indeed put in place on the West branch as well. So everyone is going to have access to equipment that will be more resilient towards snowstorms. These improvements will be implemented elsewhere all across the network indeed.
What's the current target for me to be able to go from downtown from the McGill station and hop off at Fairview Point Claire, let's say? What's the timeline?
So we're talking about a commissioning next fall, and we're targeting October
2025.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I certainly listen. I think if you get up and running in an expansion mode and the trains run, I think people will eventually get very excited. Francis, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, and have a nice day.
You too. That's Francis Labbé from CDPQ Infra. When we return on the Elias Mackos Show, should we start charging people for no-shows at medical appointments? Government of Quebec Health Minister Christian Dubé floated the idea last week. We're going to get the take of one family doctor coming up next. We do traffic, though, right here, right now.